So I'd like to share with all of you the love story of Aaron and Kelsey. And the crowd said, "Aw." The Aaron and Kelsey story begins, sort of, with a chance meeting during their sophomore year of college during the spring of 2015 at a house party. Kelsey was busy talking to her friend Shayna on the phone when Aaron's friend noticed that this person was sitting on the floor under a makeshift bar. Aaron's friend Jake taps Kelsey on the shoulder so she stands up and then proceeds to shake her hand. And of course, Aaron does what any gentleman would do.
I shook her hand and I took her hand and kissed her on the hand, and I immediately in my head I thought, well, I'm glad I never have to see this person again.
Well, despite this awkward move, Aaron was still able to get her number. But alas, after many attempts to talk to her, nothing.
I tried to talk to her for probably a week or two before I got the hint.
So let's fast forward just a little bit to their second meeting. She went to get her belly button pierced, and he just happened to be there getting work done on his tattoo.
And my friend I was there with knew him, and so we were standing in the doorway of the room he was getting his tattoo done in, and she was talking to him, and I was just awkwardly standing there like, oh, this guy.
Okay, maybe third time's the charm. They meet up at the same house as our first meeting. This time, Aaron and Kelsey spent hours sitting on the brick wall outside just talking and having a deep conversation. Afterwards, Aaron tried to text again about getting together to hang out, but Kelsey had other plans.
I said, I can't, I'm going to a Garth Brooks concert with my family. And he thought, Garth Brooks hasn't toured in years. That's definitely a lie.
That's a lie.
But I really went to the concert with my family.
Okay, so Aaron got the hint. So for the next year, nothing happens. No chance meeting, no accidental run-ins, nothing. Fortunately for all of us, the start of their senior year brings another chance meeting. Aaron was working the door at Kimball's in Williamsport, and when he saw her walk in...
Oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
However, Aaron made it a point to be near her washing cups, and they started talking again. She even left him a tip, and that's when things really finally started. However, this is also where our timeline gets a little tricky. Some would say that they had their first date later on September 25th. But before we can get to that, we have to talk about an important trip to the cell block, a local bar here in Williamsport. Kelsey was going there because one of her roommates was turning 21, but it wasn't long before she ditched her friends to hang out with Aaron.
And we had a great time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like we had known each other for forever.
Now, the reason this date, but not a date, is so important is that something else special happened. Our couple shared in their very first kiss. Now picture them up on the balcony, basically in an area all to themselves.
We were dancing and having a great time,
And there was nobody up there, so we were kind of just up there like dancing all goofy.
yeah, we had like a party just to ourselves. We would like come over to the balcony and we'd stop and we'd look at all these people standing down on the dance floor dancing, and we'd watch them for a little bit, and then we'd go back to dancing. And the one time she was over standing on the balcony, and then I walked over next to her and I leaned over and gave her a smooch, and she was receptive to it.
Way to go, Aaron! Okay, now for the real first date. A trip to Old School Pizza for a couple of slices. Aaron picked her up in his car. Now, most people would know that when you're trying to make an impression, there are some things that you don't talk about. Politics being one of them. However, since it was election time, it became one of the focal points of the night.
It doesn't matter who we vote for, the Rothschilds pick the president anyway. And that's when I knew that she was the one for me. Because there's no way God put someone here as crazy as I am, unless we're meant to go somewhere.
All right, so from there, we went back to Aaron's to watch Parks and Rec. Quite the romantic night, if you ask me. I kid, guys. But the truth is that after the cell block, while they never talked about being exclusive, Kelsey was hooked.
I remember we rode home on the very romantic cell block bus. And I remember sitting in the seat with him, and I was like holding his arm, and I was just thinking how good it felt, and I didn't want to let go.
And so, while they never made formal plans, they just kept hanging out again and again, including a second date to watch the first debate of the 2016 election. So the milestone that led to Kelsey and Aaron actually being exclusive happened at the Crippled Bear, when he asked her to go back to his home for his brother's Halloween party that was coming up. They had never discussed boyfriend and girlfriend names.
I don't know at what point we decided that to call each other boyfriend and girlfriend, but I know when we did, Aaron was like, well, when was our first date? And then he like backdated it to when we first started hanging out. And I was like, that's not how that works, but whatever. We'll go with it.
Now, as any relationship grows, eventually someone is going to say those three special words, I love you. Kelsey went to visit Aaron at his mom's place over Christmas break, and just before New Year's, they went to Longwood Gardens. It was all decorated for Christmas still, and just very pretty and romantic. There they stood by this beautiful fountain.
And it had just gotten dark, and no one else was around, and I remember standing there thinking like, come on, you stupid idiot, say it.
Needless to say, no one said it that night. The next day rolls around, it's New Year's Eve, and since they had gone out for drinks for a while, it seemed like the perfect time to go ahead and do so. After having a couple, they go to Aaron's brother's to set off fireworks, because that seemed like a great idea after having a few drinks. Fortunately though, the only thing that blew up that night was the mortar tube. Now, as they finished, they head back inside into the house.
We were just sitting there in the kitchen, and I was just thinking about how much fun I was having, and Kelsey was getting along so well with my family, and I said, hey, you know, I love you.
It's important to note that at this time, Aaron was starting to look at jobs in Wisconsin and Georgia. So what exactly did that I love you mean for the two of them?
I've looked back on this moment and I'm like, how did we decide that I went with him? Mm-hmm. It was in that moment we told each other we loved each other, and I don't even think he asked me, and I was just like, well, wherever you go, I'm coming with you.
Aww. Now, for those of you keeping track, met at a house party, alcohol. Re-met at a bar, alcohol. First kiss, alcohol. I love you, alcohol. They are definitely not alcoholics. But it's important to note that their milestones do seem to revolve around it, including our wedding. Right there's the beer tent. Now, Kelsey and Aaron truly are each other's best friends. They just love spending time together, whether it's walking their dogs, watching movies, working out together, cooking chopped style, or even doing puzzles. The key is they do it together, and their communication is constant.
We talk constantly about everything, whatever it is, you know. We talk about what's happening in the world, or just what's happening in our small town, or we talk about work or families, or sometimes we just talk about nonsense. We just make jokes and laugh, and I would say that's probably one of my favorite things to do. My favorite things about being with Kelsey.
Our couple did some real growing up right out of college. They pretty much had to. I mean, immediately following graduation, they drove to Wisconsin for Aaron's work. It was exciting, but it was also nerve-wracking. They found a place to live, but couldn't afford to get furniture right away. On Kelsey's birthday, Aaron knew how down she was being away from her family, so they took a trip to the Humane Society to play with the dogs. Next thing we know, Kelsey is filling out the paperwork to get this adorable puppy, Lucas. Now keep in mind, they're not allowed to have a dog yet. So what did they do? They put down one of Aaron's old roommates as their landlord.
So they call him, and they said, we noticed you have a Pennsylvania phone number, but the property's in Wisconsin. And he goes, yeah, I got properties all over this.
All right, let's fast forward just a little bit here. Aaron and Kelsey are now living back home. There was a trailer that used to be a hunting camp on her parents' property. That's where they were going to be staying until they could save up for something else. Now, it was true that after all this time, Kelsey was wanting to get married, but she wasn't really expecting anything just yet. While they never actually talked about it, outside of saying she didn't want a Christmas proposal, she did have a Pinterest board about the ring she liked and also the ones she hated.
I just started quizzing him so he knew my style of rings, because I didn't want to wear an ugly one forever.
Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
she would show me like 4 rings and say, okay, which one of these do you like? And I would say, I don't know, that one. She'd say, it's a trick, they're all ugly.
So Aaron, using his knowledge, went to a jewelry store in New York and had them make exactly what he wanted. Next up, it was time to get permission. In November of 2019, Aaron found the time to ask Kelsey's brother and then her dad. And in tradition with people who meet over alcohol and then live in a trailer,
I traded her dad 2 boxes of ammo. I sat him down and I said, hey, I just want to make a deal with you. If I put the boxes of ammo down and slid it over, I said, I'll give you these couple boxes of ammo if I can marry Kelsey.
then come up on December 19th. Despite being multiple times again that she didn't want it at Christmas time,
she comes home from work.
This is another weird thing why debates are, because now it was the 2020 election.
And the debate was on.
Because he was been talking about how excited he was to watch a debate. So on my way home from work, I called him. I was just trying to talk to him, and he was like, I'll talk to you when you get home. He was like trying to push me off the phone, and I was like, oh no, because by the time I get home, the debate will be started and you won't talk to me. And he's like, I'll talk to you. So I was like, okay, bye. And we hung up, and then I pulled up and all the lights were off, and I was like, what the heck, is he watching it in the dark? It was really weird.
I set up our living room. You know, we had all our Christmas decorations. I set up these tea candles along the TV stand and lit them all up. And she came in the door, and I was standing there, and
he was wearing the Kimball's t-shirt he was wearing the night that I went in.
The backwards hat.
I started to wonder, but I was like it all just happened so fast.
The dogs ran over, and I started talking about our relationship, and I said, you know, we moved to Wisconsin, and then I said, and then what happened? And she said, then we got Luke, and then I said, we moved back here, and then she said, well, then we got our next dog, Bo, and I said, well, we've just been together, living life and doing it all, and I got right up next to her and got down on one knee and said, now I'm wondering if you'd marry me.
I was just floored. I couldn't believe it was happening, and I was so excited. And I think the first thing I said was, "Are you sure?"
Yeah,
but I was crying, and then I said yes.
and that yes brings us to this moment, the marriage of Mr. and Mrs. Aaron and Kelsey Cusatis.